The anime begins with a man known as Junk Dog riding his bike and thinking about his life. We begin to learn about a sport called Megalo Boxing that incorporates technology into boxing. The boxers use a gear when fighting and it heightens their strength and speed. Junk Dog is a Megalo boxer and he makes money by fixing games in underground Megalo Box arenas with his one-eyed coach. Throwing the boxing matches is his coach's idea to make money, but Junk Dog desires fame, so when he hears about the Megalonia, the biggest Megalo Box competition with an insane prize money, he gets excited. After a fight with his coach, he rides his bike furiously and almost gets into an accident with Shirata Yukiko, the organizer of Megalonia. She is accompanied by Yuuri, who is the reigning Megalo Box champion. They nearly trade blows, but she stops them. You'll get the feeling that Yuuri will kill Junk Dog if they had been allowed to fight here. Back in the underground arena, Junk Dog and his coach argue as the fighter doesn't want to throw any more games. Yuuri appears at the entrance, and it is clear that he is here for a fight. Junk Dog and Coach Nanbu are shocked to see Yuuri. The coach tries to call off the match, however both fighters are enthusiastic, and it begins. Yuuri easily takes the lead, pushing Junk Dog back with jabs after jabs, showing everyone why he is the champion. Yuuri decides to use just one hand, creating a handicap, and this enrages Junk Dog, making him to lose his stance and charge in. As Junk Dog charges in, Yuuri sees an opening and delivers a devastating blow that sends Junk Dog to the ground. This is getting exciting. It is clear at this point that Junk Dog is no match for Yuuri, who is popularly known as the King of Kings. Junk Dog struggles to get up before the count ends, and this time around, he engages Yuuri in a slow drawn-out fight that sees him almost land a punch, forcing the champion to block it with his other hand. The crowd erupts in a cheer. With the handicap now over, Yuuri declares that now he will show Junk Dog his real Megalo boxing. In less than 30 seconds, he knocks out Junk Dog, winning the fight. Easy work for the champion. As Yuuri leaves the arena, Junk Dog challenges him. He replies that Junk Dog has to come meet him in his own ring, Megalonia. Junk Dog is now focused on getting into Megalonia, so he refuses to throw a match, making the dangerous Mr. Fujimaki that runs the underground arena very angry. The boss decides to gouge out Coach Nanbu's other eye, but after pleading, the coach says that they will register for Megalonia, and after winning he will pay back Mr. Fujimaki. Now he has 3 months to turn Junk Dog into a world-class fighter. Mr. Fujimaki helps them to make a fake ID card, because Junk Dog isn't a citizen and so ordinarily wouldn't be allowed to compete in Megalonia. The episode ends with a reveal of Junk Dog's new name, Joe. Coach Nanbu successfully registers Joe for the Megalonia, and it is revealed that he is the least-ranked fighter. 257. Nanbu decides to organize 5 fights for Joe to get him prepared and ready for the final 4. Nanbu also works on improving Joe's gear, and in one of these stores, they meet a young boy named Sachio and his friends. Sachio and friends steal technology materials and sell to the shop owners for candy bars. Imagine selling cameras for candy. These kids are hilarious. When Sachio gets into an argument with the shop owner, the man gets violent with the young kids, forcing Joe to step in. The kids follow Nanbu and Joe back to the gym, and while they are training, Sachio goes into details explaining why the newly improved gear won't work. Sachio goes back to the store and steals a gear there, using his friends to deliver it to Joe. His friends beg Joe and Nanbu to go save him. On getting to the store, Joe, clad with the gear, fights the thug and the gear breaks in the process. Now without the gear, but with instructions from Sachio, Joe defeats the thug and they walk away as he tells Sachio that they will go to Megalonia together. Joe is without gears, and his first fight has arrived. He gets into the ring with the stage name Fearless Joe. He will now be fighting Megalo Boxing without the signature technology of the sports. Nanbu thinks it is a good strategy to garner attention and get higher-ranked fighters to engage him in the ring. Joe's first fight is against Samejima the Shark, a dirty fighter that has been disqualified from several fights. Samejima takes the lead in the fight, knocking down Joe. Fearless Joe gets up just before the count ends, and Samejima begins to beat him again as Joe reacts sluggishly. Nanbu and Sachio grow more worried as Joe is not fighting well. I feel Joe is quite nervous and the pressure is getting to him. After some pep talk from Sachio and Nanbu, the next round begins and Joe is clearly now more confident. Joe fights on equal footing with Samejima and is able to send him to the floor with a punch, and the referee declares Fearless Joe the winner. We see Joe win his matches against 2 other fighters, and he rises to 102 on the rank board. Nanba gets back to work to secure another fighter for Joe, and while he is seeking for a fighter around rank 49 to 30, he gets an offer from the rank 17th fighter. The man enters the room and speaks with Nanbu with some level of familiarity. Nanbu is shocked and scared as he looks up at the man with a body full of scars. We get a flashback into the past, and we see a soldier in a war-torn region. He takes off his helmet and he turns out to be the same man full of scars that just met Nanbu. He goes over to investigate something on the floor, and it turns out to be a bomb. Over to the present, we learn that the man's name is Aragaki. He and Nanbu had worked together previously, and they produced stellar result in the ring until he was deployed and had that bomb incident and he was declared dead. Nanbu was devastated, closed the gym and abandoned coaching, but when Aragaki returned, he took Nanbu's disappearance as an act of betrayal. On such a sad story, Aragaki tells Nanbu that he wants to destroy Joe. Hearing this, Nanbu tries to call off the fight, but Joe is adamant. Aragaki's coach tries to talk him off fighting someone so low, but he refuses and soon the match begins. It doesn't take long for Aragaki to knock him down with a punch and the count begins. The episode begins with a flashback to Aragaki training under Coach Nanbu. Now in the present, Joe stands up before the count gets to 10. The round continues with Aragaki dominating and pummeling Joe with blows, but the gearless man is quite durable. The second and third rounds are also in Aragaki's favor, and we see Joe keep repeating some of Nanbu's instructions while he is being pushed back with several punches. Seeing Joe unfazed and repeating instructions, Aragaki loses his cool and begins to fight rashly. One would expect that the number 17th fighter shouldn't have a problem dealing with someone ranked 102. Coach Nanbu wants them to forfeit the match, prioritizing Joe's health, but the fighter refuses and he is finally able to land a clean punch on Aragaki at the end of the third round. The fourth round begins, and it is an absolute slugfest as they trade blow for blow. This is the most exciting fight so far. I really love this. The round ends, and while they are about to begin the fifth round, Aragaki and his team decide to forfeit and Gearless Joe is announced as the winner. Nanbu discusses with Aragaki later, and we see that he has been injured. He is bleeding from his knee into his prosthetic legs, and he says that if he had not stopped, he could have been bedridden. Later on, Glenn Burrows, also known as Bloody Lion, is announced as the latest entrant in the Final Four of Megalonia. Then we see Yuuri and Mikio talk about Gearless Joe's successes so far. After the massive upset he just caused, Joe becomes the talk of the town. A match has been fixed between Shirato Mikio, who uses an AI gear, and the talented boxer, Sugar Hill. Some people feel that this match will decide the final entrant into the Megalonia Final Four, leaving no spot for Gearless Joe. To everyone's surprise, Mikio easily destroys his opponent and then challenges Joe to come fight him for the ticket to Megalonia. Seems like luck has shown on our boy. With the match coming soon and Joe still injured from the Aragaki fight, they begin his healing process. We soon learn that Mikio and the owner of Megalo Box, Yukiko, are siblings. Mikio is pissed that he wasn't chosen to lead the company, and now he will do anything to unseat his sister. Nanbu, Sachio, and his team all contribute to getting Joe ready for the match, and when the fight finally arrives, Mikio stops them as they are heading to the ring, and he states that he knows about the fake ID and their past, throwing games in the underground arena. He warns Joe not to climb the ring or else he will reveal these information to the public. Mikio seems like the better fighter, so I wonder why he will go to these lengths to avoid a fight with Joe. Joe and his team are distraught and disappointed, and we see Mikio on stage as he is declared the winner by default. After they are forced to forfeit the match by Mikio's blackmail, the next scene is a discussion between Nanbu and Fujimaki. Fujimaki reveals to him that someone was snooping around for information concerning Joe. He also reveals to Nanbu that they fell for a bluff as Mikio does not have any proof to back up his accusations. Fujimaki and Nanbu enlist the help of a former Shirato worker, a gear developer, to help them get some information on Shirato or Mikio. The man reveals the secret of the AI gear, that it only senses movement from a gear, so it will be useless against a fighter like Joe who doesn't use a gear. After learning Mikio feud with his sister too, Nanbu decides to go meet Yukiko. The meeting does not go well, and even after Nanbu comes clean about the ID card and the match fixing, she still does not listen to him, locking him in the meeting room. All hope seems lost for our gearless boy. As Mikio is being announced as the final fighter for Megalonia, Gearless Joe barges into the ceremony with his bike. He gives a speech and Yukiko declares that the fight must hold. The rematch is finally on. Shirato Mikio vs Gearless Joe. Who will win the final slot? The fight has started and Mikio is brutally beating Gearless Joe. It is soon revealed that the AI gear has now been upgraded and it can now read movement from organic signatures too, meaning that Mikio can predict and also copy Joe's moves. It's not looking good for Joe at the moment. The second and third rounds go the same way, with Mikio putting Joe under intense torture with his rain of blows. We also get a flash into Mikio's past, and we see that while he tries to push the limits of the AI gear, he became heavily reliant on a stimulant drug that ended up making the gear to overload. It is also revealed from the flashbacks that Yuuri and Mikio have a bit of a rivalry of some sorts over the efficiency of their gears. The fight continues. Joe tries to punch Mikio, but he stops halfway and the AI gear seems to be confused and doesn't know what to do, bringing the round to an end. Joe uses this knowledge of the AI's uncertainty to deceive Mikio, and he is able to launch a devastating punch that sends Mikio to the ground, and after some time, he is declared the winner. Gearless Joe, who was the last ranked fighter, will now be heading to Megalonia. The episode comes to an end with Nanbu telling the mob boss, Mr. Fujimaki, that he hasn't told Joe or Sachio what comes next. When Mr. Fujimaki tells Nanbu that the ride is over, it is revealed that during the previous meeting, they had agreed to get to Megalonia, build up interest in Joe, and then throw a match so that Mr. Fujimaki wins big through the bets. Joe confronts Nanbu over the issue, and he is very angry and disappointed. He gets on his bike and rides away. Sachio also leaves, and the team is in tatters. It's just one trouble after another for our protagonist. The next day, a press conference for Megalonia holds, but neither Joe nor any member of his team is present. We then see Nanbu try to convince insulting Sachio by proving that even Sachio tried to use Gearless Joe for his own advantage too. Sachio feels his dad was killed by someone in Shirato, and now he wants to take his revenge. Nanbu takes the young boy to a party and gives him a knife to kill Shirato Yukiko, but Sachio declines, stating that the revenge he wants is to get to the top of Megalonia. To prevent Fujimaki from killing Sachio, Nanbu puts the boy under Yukiko's care. Later on, the first fight between Yuuri and Pepe Iglesias begins. The first round swings by with both evenly matched. However, in the second round Pepe gets more aggressive and Yuuri sees an opening, delivering a powerful combo that knocks out Pepe. Yuuri, the King of Kings, now heads into the final. After the match, there's a conversation between Yuuri and Joe. The stage is now set for Gearless Joe versus Glenn Burrows. Joe shocks the crowd by entering the ring with his gear. We see Nanbu watching the match from the executive room with Fujimaki and his thugs. It looks like a hostage situation. From their interaction, we learn that Joe is supposed to allow Glenn win. A minute into the third round, Nanbu is communicating with Joe through an earpiece even though Joe is ignoring him. Joe is able to match up to Glenn's animalistic strength, even with his low-grade gear. Yuuri is watching from the crowd, and he can tell that Joe is holding back. Round 3 begins, and as Glenn throws the punch, Sachio screams at Joe. Nevertheless, the punch connects and Joe goes down. Sachio runs towards the ring, losing Joe's ID card in the process, and Yuuri stops the security from taking Sachio away. Yuuri says something to Joe that spurs him on. Fujimaki reveals that Nanbu and Joe will work for him for life, pissing off Nanbu, who screams into Joe's ears to take back his fight and his future. As Joe gets up, his gear breaks off. You know what time it is. Gearless Joe is back. As Glenn charges in, Joe sinks him with an insane counter-punch, and the gearless guy is off to the finals to face Yuuri. When Joe finally gets to the executive room, we see that Nanbu's other eye has been removed, now blind in both eyes. Nanbu reveals that it was his own choice to pay off the debt to Mr. Fujimaki, and the thug boss allows them go. Yukiko signs a huge contract with the government on the use of the gears. Her aim for starting Megalonia has finally been achieved. Nevertheless, she is stunned when Yuuri declares that he is going to fight the final battle without a gear. Nanbu is now blind, so he recruits Aragaki and his coach to help Joe prepare for the final fight. Yuuri meets Mikio Shirato and tells him to remove the integrated gear from his body. The procedure is grueling, and during the recovery, Yuuri is in an insane level of pain. Yukiko Shirato and her assistant have now done some research on Joe's ID card that Sachio dropped, and she contemplates using the information to cancel the fight. Yukiko goes to visit Mikio and Yuuri, and she sees that Yuuri has been in excruciating pains for 5 days now. They talk and he tells her not to take away his will to leave, and the next day we see that Yuuri has recovered and is now up and boxing. The episode comes to an end with Yukiko visiting Joe and giving him back his ID card. She also tells him that Joe has taken off his gear. It's been a long ride for gearless Joe, but he finally gets into the ring with Yuuri, the King of Kings. Yuuri's body is now full of scares in place of gear. From the beginning, Yuuri dominates the match, showing why he is the champion. We can also say that previous Joe matches prove that he is a slow starter though. Yuuri rains a flurry of punches on him. While Joe can only keep his guard up, he soon knocks Joe down, but the gearless fighter gets back up. In another location, Yukiko is calmly pitching the use of gears to a military committee. The final fight of Megalonia goes on to be longer than any other we have seen, as the fighters slug it out, punch after punch, even to the 11th round. In the 13th round, both fighters begins to appreciate each other, as this fight has elevated their abilities as fighters. Both of them share a final punch, and what we see next is a 1-year time skip. All the characters, Nanbu, Sachio and his crew are enjoying their lives. Yuuri is now confined to a wheelchair. Sachio mentions that Yukiko came by to congratulate Joe, and we see Joe riding his bike to the gym. In the final credit roll, a black screen confirms that Joe won with a knockout in the 13th round, and the season comes to an end.